I don't know if you've watched Twilight, but there's a moment where the werewolf like imprints,
Yeah.
and I had that moment.
Why do you parent like that?
Hello everyone, welcome back to Why Do You Parent Like That for another week. My name is Abby Harrison and I am the creator and host of this podcast. It is lovely to be in your ears. Is that creepy? Maybe. Moving on. This week we have Rāniera Procter on the podcast, a man who is choosing to raise his family with the aim of revitalising te Reo Māori and te ao Māori. You will hear his journey of growing up in a Māori-speaking home and then passing that on, and about how having children set him on the path of wanting to strive towards that reclamation. Rāniera has 3 children with his ex-wife, and he and his wife Kawai are due to have a baby girl literally any day now. This is their second pēpi after they lost their beautiful daughter, Hinepūororangi, at 33 weeks gestation last year. I am so grateful to Rāniera for his knowledge and kindness and graciousness in coming and sharing with me on the podcast. He even made this Pākehā understand te ao Māori tikanga by using movie references, and you've just got to love that accessibility. A quick content forecast. Thank you, Charlotte Bruce Kells, for the heads up on that wording. I was previously using the word content warning, and now I'm changing to content forecast, and you can Google it if you're wanting to know why. But there is big discussion around stillbirth, obviously, because Rāniera and his wife Kawai lost their first pēpi, Hinepūororangi, at 33 weeks gestation, and we talk about the tikanga that occurred around that process. This conversation happens during the 4th question after Rāniera has spoken about his eldest daughter growing up. And so if that topic is heavy for you, please look after yourself. As always, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening, and follow me on my socials and my Substack. Enjoy the Rāniera episode. It was one of those times I felt just so honoured to be able to share in people's journeys through this podcast. Love you. Say it back.
Why do you parent like that?
Today's guest is someone who lives and breathes whānau, reo and legacy. Rāniera Procter, also known to many through his Instagram at Rāniera_Procter, is a father of almost 4, a leader in Māori education, and a man whose life's work is about building futures rooted in language, culture and connection. He's the co-chair of the Te Kohanga Reo National Trust, supporting over 9,000 mokopuna across 420 kohanga reo. He also chairs Te Matakahuki and Te Taumata at Sport NZ, and serves in multiple governance roles across the Māori education and wellbeing landscape. From kohanga to kura to wharekura and waiananga, he's helping guide the learning journeys of over 50,000 tauira across Aotearoa. But Rāniera's story is also deeply personal. He and his wife, Kawai Whakaheke, are expecting their pēpi any day now, a baby girl. Their first daughter, Hinepūororangi, was born still at 33 weeks in June 2024. Rāniera is also the dad to 3 beautiful tamariki, Alia, Waimea and Makaya, who attend the same kura kaupapa Māori his own parents founded in their shed in 1993, a kura that started with 13 kids and no state funding and now serves more than 240 students. He now chairs the board. In his home, only te reo Māori is spoken. It's the language he was raised in and the language he now raises his children in, a living commitment to his parents' dream of cultural reclamation. The strength of his whānau today is rooted in the direction of those who came before and the daily choices he makes to carry that kaupapa forward. Rāniera, welcome to Why Do You Parent Like That?
Kia ora, tēnā koe. Thank you, Abby. As you were introducing me, I was like, who is she talking about? You don't quite take a moment to reflect on, the length and breadth of your work and really the legacy that you've been handed.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that very, very gracious introduction.
Well, look, it's all things that you've done. I just put it in the one place, So, Rāniera, if people don't know who you are, would you like to give yourself a little bit more of an introduction, or just how would you introduce yourself to people?
Well, I'm as you said, a father, and that's my number one role. And I just contribute and sometimes lead movements that are really there just to give some positive contribution and also protection to my whakapapa, which is the 4 children you mentioned. And I'm just gracious to be here. Kia ora.
So why don't we just crack straight into the questions and we'll dig in.
Yeah, let's go.
So do you want to tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming a parent?
So So I became a father when I was about 22. Lea, she's almost 15 now. So yeah, it was not expected. And to be honest, I was sort of at the time trying to forge a professional surfing career, if you could have one at the time. And
Wow.
was traveling around the world trying to make $1 and compete. And then my former wife and I, when I'd stop in back home, she became pregnant, and Malia came in 2010, and then from then on, my life changed considerably. You mentioned in the introduction about my commitment to the language, but to be honest, I probably didn't speak Māori other than when my dad would come over home. Other than that, I wouldn't really speak much Māori, and so the surfing world isn't really one you would think, oh, it's a Māori speaking environment, and so I kind of adapted to the environment. And then when she came, something happened. Like, I don't know if you've watched Twilight, but there's a moment where the werewolf like imprints,
Yeah.
and I had that moment. To be honest, and I know, like, some dads will try and say, oh, yeah, when baby was here, I was like, oh, I knew it was going to, but I didn't actually know until she fell into my arms that I was going to be a dad. Like, it's
Yeah.
like a,
Yeah,
I
I think my husband feels the same, that he was like, until the kids were here, I was like,
I knew, like, psychologically, but it wasn't a real thing for me.
yeah.
Until
Yeah,
it
it's
was,
all abstract, right? And then suddenly when they're in your arms, you're like, oh, that's a baby.
it's a real thing. It's tangible. And I had an
Yeah.
imprinting moment.
Yeah.
Where everything in my whole life, none of that mattered.
Yeah.
and that was really just a preparation for this, why I was put on this earth, as I
Yeah.
felt at that moment. And so I
Wow.
had that with her, and then that changed the course of my life. And so, as you mentioned, like, the Māori speaking environment that we create at home here is the imitation of the environment that I grew up in. And
Yeah.
so so from then on, it's just been a dedication to movements and kaupapa. We use the word kaupapa that are there for our babies and our whakapapa. So it's been a life-changing journey becoming a father for me.
Yeah. Changed everything for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was it Malia was your first?
Yeah, she's the
Was it
one.
when she was born that you realized you like were interested in bringing that te reo back into your life and into your
Yeah,
family?
so I didn't even plan it. I didn't speak to her mum. There was no prep. It's quite funny because we learn there's 3 rituals that you do for Māori when you have children. Um, as soon as the baby arrives, there's a ritual where you welcome them into the world. And it's sort of like, on Lion King, and I kind of reference movies because people kind of get them.
No, it's
Lion King,
good. It's nice to have like a reference point for Pākehā to be like, what?
where they lift Simba and they're like,
Yeah.
hey, the new
Yeah.
king. There's that where there's a moment, but it's done quite privately, and you speak to the child's role and all the good things you want. It's kind of like goal setting 101, but
Yeah.
with the child in front of you. And so you kind of, as you say it to the child, it's almost this mirror or this dual kind of parallel thing where you're telling yourself that this is my dedication. I'm dedicating myself to you. It's my commitment. So I did that without even practicing it, without knowing I would do it. So lots of things changed for me as soon as she was born. And so it's the power and the impact of our children. And sometimes when we talk about our kids, we're talking about, being their teacher, being their role model. Well, like, my kids are kind of like my teacher. Before I had children, even for a little bit while I had them, I was not probably the most respectful character around the place. And so many of my choices weren't consistent with my current roles. However, they've really nudged me in a direction that's really quite powerful.
It's quite amazing how I think for lots of people you have children and you go, oh my gosh, actually, what is the legacy I want to leave in this world? Like, you've suddenly got such a tangible of such a tangible view of the future in front of you. And so suddenly you're faced with this idea of like, oh my gosh, this is someone that I am imparting stuff on for the future that will be here after I'm not here anymore. It's a real confronting thing of this is my impact on the future and what am I doing to make sure that that's a positive thing.
So in the Māori kind of ideology, that we speak lots about genealogy. So we go like about 55 to 60 generations. That's what we teach our kids. We teach them genealogies all the way down to them from different parts of their family tree, all the way down. And you might hear the word waka. So your waka would be the region that you came from, the canoe that you came to Aotearoa on some 800-900 years ago. And then there would be probably about another 20 generations while we were in Polynesia. So we teach those as a part of understanding that you're a part of that chain, you're a part of the legacy, you're a part of and with that there has been the same when the child comes, and then there's this imbuing of dedication that has happened every generation. You're a part of this ritual, these rites of passage, that knowing that you're a part of the bigger picture, and that it's deep and meaningful and something that will be ongoing. So it's that you belong to something, that sense of belonging to something deep and meaningful and bigger than yourself, and that you have something to contribute that can either shape and change or hold and sometimes negatively affect that legacy. And so it's that's quite spoken about often in our home, and then when I was growing up, and then previous to that.
What was that like for you growing up? Like, were you always aware of like that there was that you were a part of something bigger? Was that something that was always with you, or did you try? Because like I'm thinking about when I was a teenager and making terrible decisions. I feel like making bad decisions, I would have felt so much more, not guilt, but like, yeah, maybe a bit of guilt if I was so aware of my whakapapa, you know?
Yeah, it's well, because some of our ancestors were pretty mischievous too, so we share those stories too. They weren't all saints. So it's just understanding the human psyche and the human in us, because we speak about he atua he tangata. We are both human and we are divine, and in the understanding that balance, something quite technical and deep. Is we try and simplify that, so it's categorized, we can work with it, we can shape it, and then it shapes our view of the world, our view of self in different contexts. But there is always that sort of thing in the back of our heads around responsibility to self and others in a kind of the collective, because in Māoridom everything's about a collective decision making, collective thinking, mokopuna decisions. Sometimes those things are hoha, because it's hard to get everybody consensus.
Yeah, I bet.
You know? So the I shouldn't say this, but sometimes the Māori way is hard. It's the hard way to do things. But anything that's kind of hard, it's a long game. We play long game. This is how we approach things.
And it's that thing of like every decision that you're making for the collective is for the greater good of the collective, which often means it's going to be harder than if you were just making sure it was good for one person or one family. But because you're making sure it's good for everyone, that's obviously going to be more work. But like you're saying, pays off in the long run.
And it's quite interesting because when we speak about everyone, this is traditionally, we're really just speaking about the people inside our pa. There might be about 120 to 150. Yeah. Everybody outside of that, we either have partnerships with or we are at war with. So it's either everyone in here. It's like a socialist model inside the pa. It's about everybody, and those that have the highest needs, they get the most. Outside of that, we either have partners to get resources for people inside our pa, or we're at war with. So it's kind of like a capitalist model outside and a socialist model inside. Which is what I was talking about understanding the bigger picture, but also understanding that you're a part of this legacy, and your number one responsibility is to maintaining what's inside your pa.
And so then how are you teaching your kids that? Are you making any specific moves, or are you just role modeling to them?
So we do a couple things. Every night at about 8 o'clock, we have kind of like a team group, kind of like we all get in, we go, okay.
Group huddle.
Group hui every night at 8 o'clock.
Nice.
Usually no matter what. Even if there's guests here, we'll just go, okay, you're included. Everyone gets in.
Yeah.
We do a little rites of passage every night, which is kind of like a reclaiming. So we do a little bit of genealogy, a little bit of speaking to sites of significance. So we would speak about our maunga, our awa, a lesson for the day. And then we would go into what we're going to do tomorrow. And then we would give thanks for what we've done today and look forward to tomorrow. And then we would reflect on either one of the lessons of the day or an action that we had decided the night before we would action the following day. So every day has this kind of like a reflection time, but a team group, but very personal. And we only really do that just us, whoever's in the house, 4 or 5 of us, we do that every night. And so we get to check in with each other. And then the kids can kind of hold us to account and we can hold them to account. So we're all working and growing together. So we do that. So that's kind of like a practice that keeps us on track. The other one that we do is that we're deeply committed to movements, to our marae, things that are important to be able to say, oh, I belong to this place or this maunga. I'm a great believer that if we say, oh, we're from that marae, we have some responsibilities, obligations.
Yeah.
So when we might lose a member of our tribe, that means that we have to be there for 3 days, cooking, greeting, managing the marae, making sure everyone that's a part of that type whānau feel that they've been looked after. So that all comes part and parcel of being a contributing member of the sub-tribe, and then broader than that, the movements that we engage in, kura kaupapa Māori, kohanga reo, that are so important because they impact at a scale for Māoridom that's really important. Of the Māori speakers today that are proficient, 80% of them came through that pathway. And
wow, I didn't know that.
So without it, we would be looking at dire straits for the language. So that's the significance, how critical our contribution is to those movements, because without those movements, we would be in a really sad state.
Yeah. And do you ever get pushback from your kids when you're like, because I grew up going to church, and so often there were times that my parents would be like, okay, we're going to be at church and we're going to do the dishes and we're going to clean up the rubbish and, we're going to be there. And I can remember being, like a 16-year-old and being like, oh, I don't want to clean up today.
Well, I never complained. that's one thing, but they never hear me complain, so I'm fully in, even though I have the same feelings.
Yeah.
I think, I don't, like, of the days of the week, only Monday night we don't have something. Every other night it's something for someone else. So, you sort of think, when do we get time to do our own thing? But the own thing is the everybody thing.
Yeah.
We got kapahaka, we got netball, we got things for the hapu, we got teach the language course, we got this, that, and the rest of it. But it all contributes back to what I come back to, which is the legacy that we want to, the world that we want to see, we create. It's a big thing in our family. The world that we want to live, we create. We don't rely on the government or anyone really outside of our 4 walls and our part to create the world that we want to live in. And so that's our commitment. So we've just through hard work been able to say that from the moment that we wake up, the moment that we go to sleep, we are living in the world that we created. And so we just need to protect that, because it's a very special thing to be able to say. Not many people can say that. And my parents' generation couldn't say that, nor could many of the generations before that. So I remind them of those things and how important it is to protect it and look after it and be grateful for the world that we live in.
And you mentioned to me that your dad's generation was the generation where they were not allowed to speak the language at all. So is that something that feels like quite close to you in terms of how your not obligation, but your desire to pass the language on?
Yeah, well, because my dad will come over probably 3 or 4 nights of the week, and they say in language revitalisation that the key indicator for a living language is a language that is spoken in the family by 3 generations. So they say it takes 1 generation to get to lose the language. It takes 3 to reclaim it. Wow. And so we've just got to 3. 3 generations under the one roof, all speaking the language amongst each other. And with it, comes, a sense of pride, but also that, it only takes one to lose it. So it's that deep commitment. The other thing is that our way of approaching it is kind of all in. Now, not everybody's like that. We have this addictive personality in our family where, okay, if you're going to do it, you go all in.
Yeah.
And so that's not for everyone. So we kind of get that too. It took us a while to get there because we used to think, oh, you fellas why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you just going for it? But actually, that's just the kind of our way. And so for us, it's quite important that we speak Māori in the home, and at least, and there has to be at least one speaker in the home for the language to feel at home.
Yeah.
Most of the kids at our kura, of which there's 150 families, I would say 90% of them wouldn't have a real speaker in the home. And so they think language is a thing for school. But language was only revived there because we had stopped speaking it in the home, which is my father's generation. And so they were kind of outcasts in the urban drift in the 1940s and 50s. Pepper potted, which means that you were the one Māori family on a street of Eurocentric streets. And so you had to take on that way of living, identity, and all the rituals that came with it. And that was pushed by Māoridom at the time, because we thought that was the thing to do, become bicultural and bilingual. But within one generation, we'd lost it all.
Yeah.
And so the language is in dire straits. And so now we've kind of gone flipped the other way. So we've gone all the way back to, okay, we're all in.
Yeah, it's good. It's amazing.
So it's just one way of looking at it, a method. People approach it in different ways. That's just the way we do it.
Yeah. And then you guys are expecting a pēpi any day.
Yeah, we can't wait.
Yeah. And what does it look like for you guys in terms of preparation, and like, is there any tikanga around that?
There's a whole range of tikanga because we're going to try and have baby at home.
Nice.
Yeah, going to try and have baby at home. So who's in the room? Who can be a supportive voice? Sometimes people want to be in the room, but they might not be the best person in the room. So we've had to have those conversations, and hopefully baby's here before this airs, so those people will know that they were the ones that you talked about at this very moment. But all those things have to happen alongside the three rituals, which is when baby arrives, there's a naming ceremony. And then the next one is the cutting of the cord. Now, traditionally, the cord would have fallen off, like you would have your afterbirth with you until probably 6 or 7 days.
Oh, wow.
And then it would fall off. And then baby would come out, and then there's a celebration where the whole community, that part that I spoke about, would come, and they would give gifts, and then they would welcome the baby into the tribe. And so your aunties became your mother, your uncles became your father, and so there's kind of a wide net that are dedicated to the child, and the child to the legacy of the hapu. So those things will happen. So there's a naming, a dedication, and then a tohi which we take baby to the water. That'll be later on, and then we speak to what we want for baby, goals for baby, and it's good for her siblings, because although from one view they'll be half siblings, we don't really believe in the sort of the half whole thing. They're just tuakana, they're siblings, a part of that big tree. And so it really reinforces the bond that's symbiotic between everybody in the whānau.
And quite amazing in terms of, like, right from the beginning, you're speaking over what you want for this baby, and everyone's hearing that and agreeing on that. So you're agreeing on the common goals that you're working towards for this baby's life right from the start, which, in Pākehā culture, that's quite a countercultural thing in terms of, like, oh, we're just let the baby grow up and we'll just keep it alive. But actually it's really beautiful to be like, no, this baby is a human who's going to be an adult, and these are what the things that we see for its future, and this is how we're going to grow it that way. It's an amazing thing for everyone to be a part of and sort of be in agreement on right from the start. That's really amazing.
Yep. Yeah, we there's a saying that you might have heard it before, when we go tūturu whakamaua kia tīna haumie huia taiki. That's actually like saying, does everyone agree of what I've just said? And if you say taiki, you say, yes, I agree.
Yes.
Haumie, which actually is like a binding. It's like a verbal contract.
Yeah.
It's and traditionally our word was everything. It was our bond. It was if you didn't hold your word, you were like you weren't seen in a good light. And so
Your word was
yeah,
everything.
was everything. And so that was your mana was hung on your ability to maintain your the robustness of your contribution to what you've just said. So that's kind of what Tūturu Whiwhi Whakamau Kia Tina means, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's quite so inside the rituals, they kind of have it sets a pathway, but it also acts as a practical function
Yeah.
for goal setting and a dedication to baby and the idea of family. Because like even though Hinepūororangi Iti, because we've named her after her older sister that passed, so she'll just she'll be like a living representation of her older
That's
sister.
lovely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The older kids will see that, like Male will see it, Waimea will see it, and then they'll go, oh, did that happen with me too?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, so you did this thing for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like, I just, as we're talking now, I'll do that as part of our karakia tonight. I'll say, oh, at your tohi, we did this, we did this, we did this,
That's
and
so
we said
nice.
these things.
Yeah.
Even though they may not remember it, once they participate, they go, oh, this all happened for us too.
Yeah.
So it's that real deep sense of belonging, reclamation. So when we talk about resilience in the world, you have all these memories to lean back onto when things get hard, because life is hard. Life gets really hard, and it often just gets harder and harder. And so how strong the family is, and the relationships, the symbiotic nature of those relationships, and deep and meaningful experiences, learning experiences are really important, because you lean into those, and when life gets hard.
And so it's the tohi, right? Was the name of
Yeah,
it?
the tohi, that's kind I don't really know. It's a dedication, but it's almost like goal setting. It's you might notice things in certain children. You're like, oh, I think they'll be really good at doing this, or really good at doing that. Or even just qualities. Like in the traditional ritual of the tohi, we would speak about you can climb mountains, you will find new land, you will traverse the oceans. That will be spoken about in the ritual.
Yeah.
And so you might be dedicated for an art school or navigation school or reading matariki, celestial school. Those types of pathways will be there for you, because like in your family, if everyone's a teacher, then everyone thinks they're a brain box, but no one's a lawyer, no one's a
Yeah.
doctor. Everyone just thinks like everyone's in their head. So you
Yeah.
need a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So that kind of, when you're dedicating them and deciding what their goals are going to be, are you deciding that like as a whānau?
As a whānau.
Is there some kind of like, do you get that sort of intuition about who they're going to be while you're still hapu with them? Like, where does that kind of...
I'm a deep believer, because that, like, especially because my girls, because they're so much like their grandmothers and so much like their female ancestors, that the matriarchal line is really strong. And so, to be honest, I really don't make many decisions for the girls.
Yeah.
That's a really sacred thing for their grandmothers, their mothers, their aunties. They kind of make all those decisions. I kind of nudge and lead, but what they'll become, what they want to do, who they want to play netball for, that's kind of decided by that.
It's a serious decision.
Well, yeah, and so I usually don't participate. And I didn't do that on purpose, but that's just how it kind of worked out. But traditionally that would happen. So highborn, particularly here on the East Coast, because we have really strong women. So they would speak on our marae. They're not sitting in the back row. There's no sitting on the back row.
Yeah.
They would hold land titles. So most of our land was held by women, and men would hold like quota titles for gathering food, because that was our purpose really. So there was an understanding around that, and so we try and replicate that with some of the decision making. So if my oldest girl, she was like, "Oh, Papa, I want to do this," and I said, "Well, I have to ask your mum." And she's like, Oh, you don't know. No, don't ask her. She
No,
doesn't
no,
want to ask
no,
you.
you don't need to.
No, I have to ask your mum.
Yeah,
Yeah. So even though she may not want to, it's too bad. Yeah. So there's a deep connection to that matriarchal
that
line.
mother line.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I could talk about this all day, but we do need to move on to the next question. So, the next question is, what does successful parenting mean or look like to you?
Successful parenting for me is on a summer's break, your children come back to you for Christmas
Yeah,
and New Year's, and they hang out and
yeah,
they want to be around you.
yeah, totally.
It's like my wife's dad, he's the coolest guy. Like if he lived with us, it would be cool. He-
Yeah,
and same with my old man, like he's here probably 3 or 4 days a week. Sleeps on the couch.
love
He's like, no, I don't need a bed.
it.
There's a bed in the room. No, I don't need one.
Yeah.
I'll sleep on the couch.
Oh, bless
But
him.
it's just cool having them around. So when you can have
Mm,
that type of relationship, but to create that, yeah, it's that long game,
yeah,
and knowing, I'm not here to be your friend. Yeah,
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 yeah. It's that hard balance, eh, of like, I I like you and I want you to like me as a person, but ultimately I'm here to raise you,
yeah.
and sometimes that means you're not going to like me, and finding that sort of navigating that line can be tricky.
Mhm. Yeah, it's that multi-level relationship.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah, I've been and because my three kids, soon to be four, they're totally different from one another.
Mm.
So they think fair is equitable, and I'm like, no, 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 that's not fair. So so I don't treat you equally, but I treat you fairly.
Yeah.
Um, and you all get a different version of Papa because
Mm,
I'm totally different now to when I was 22. I was
mm,
like a child when I was 22. So when I was a child, I thought as a child. I don't think as a child now.
yeah.
So yeah, it's just them getting an understanding of that because at some stage in their life, I want them to be good mothers and good fathers themselves. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to create and foster, and then not be too burdensome because they're their own person, in their own like they're their
Mm,
own spirit,
mm,
and they yeah, I try not to cap their creative thinking and the way that they approach things, but just nudge along the way. With my
mm.
boy though, he really tests those that very gracious philosophy of mine. Um, However, yeah, long game is the kind of view because with that you get this infinite potential that
Mm,
sits inside our kids, and sometimes we kind of place our own thinking, which is counter to all the words that you said when they were born. You would say, what's this? Puritia te akamatua, hold on to all the a life's opportunities. Don't push one away. Grab every single one. The celestial and the terrestrial. You would say those things, and then when they get
mm,
older, we say, no, 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 you got to be this, or you got to think like
mm,
this, or you can only
mm,
play, or you have to interact like this. Actually, I just kind of share my own experiences, and they can choose whether they follow them or not. But
mm.
I'm just always here because that's that kind of unconditional love that everyone needs to feel. That
Yeah.
there's an adult in the world that's crazy about you. I'm a
Mm,
little bit crazy about them, but in a way that feels like, oh, Papa will always be someone safe and someone that feels like home.
yeah. And you spoke about how like your dad and you are so close. What do you think your dad did in his parenting that fostered that relationship that you want to still be close to him so much in your adulthood?
I spent lots of time with him,
Mm.
and I really didn't want to. Um, I
He
remember I
forced
was
it on you.
10. I remember I was 10, and because my dad's a surfer, and so but the
Mm.
only way he could get like get licensed to go surfing was to take someone because there was three of us. And
Yeah.
so he would say, you would basically say, you've got to come. And I said, no, I don't want to go. No. And so I'd almost be forced to go just so he could go. But in doing that, it took about 2 years for me to like going surfing and hanging out with him. Um, yeah, it took that time. But yeah, he was. Now I reflect back on all the sacrifices he made. I didn't really see them as sacrifices growing up.
Mm.
Like establishing a school for your children at your home, and then, well, obviously your
Amazing.
kids need buddies, so you're going to invite other people in the community.
Yeah.
That's a huge commitment.
Massive
That
sacrifice.
yeah, like our parents mortgaged their homes for us.
Wow.
I didn't think about it then, nor did I all throughout my teens. But then later on, I think so. Those types of things I reflect on, and it gives reverence to our
Mm,
relationship because it has changed, and we're like good buddies now.
mm.
And what used to be his law, now we kind of unpack, and he speaks to like, look, I was just like trial and error.
So I didn't know what I was doing.
I faked until I made it, and I still haven't made
Yeah.
it. But he has
It's so
softened.
funny, when those masks come off with your parent and
Yeah,
you're like, oh man, you were just a human that whole time.
yeah. Like I told my son, I said, whatever you do, don't backchat to Papa Moti. Don't do that. Like when I was growing up, that was a huge no-no. And I heard
Yeah.
my son do it once, and I reached out to block my dad, and nothing happened. And I was like, oh, wow, the
Hang
old
on.
man's changed.
You've changed.
I really softened. You know, 'cause he was raised in the 1950s where the model of parenting was totally different
Very different.
to what we have today. And so he would argue that it's gone too soft, and I would say it was abusive when he
Yeah.
was growing up. So
Yeah.
it's trying to find that like nice balance, and that's always a
Yeah.
juggling act, a trade-off that you make.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. All right, we'll move on to the third question, which is, what is something about your parenting style that feels unique to you?
I don't really know if it's very unique, but I do
Unique,
try
I
and
always like
take
to say unique-ish as well, just to don't feel
I
like you're
do
the
try
only
and take
person in the world.
yeah, I do try and take a little bit from everywhere. So I
Mm,
try not to be closed off to influence. Like you have your own principles, morals, and even those I critique at times because at the end of the day, for me, it's about that plan that you set at the start, and you keep reflecting on that year on year. You recognize your frailties and also your
mm,
strengths, and you keep developing with your kids. Probably one of the unique things is because I was quite young. Most of my mates, they were a little bit older. They might be in their 30s. So I kind of, I don't know if I would say use the word guru, but I kind of became like a bit of a sounding board
yeah.
for some of their methods.
Mm,
Like I said, because I only speak Māori to the children, I don't hold others to that same level of expectation. So
mm,
my mum, I don't expect her to speak Māori. My sisters, I don't expect them to speak Māori. But some of my mates, they've taken that same path, and they're like, you have to speak Māori to my children. And so
wow.
it's that whole, yep, do what you want to do. But this is my own experience, and it's just being
Mm,
able to share some of your own experiences because
yeah.
that peer assessment model, I think is really helpful because it's not confronting them per se, but it's actually just unpacking the idea and placing some supports around it. Because the last thing you want is for you to feel that you're being measured or
Yeah.
anything. It's just oh this is my experience, and this is how
Mm,
these are the sort of the hacks. It's
mm,
the pathway I would take, and I think it's been kind of helpful because we're all on our own little journey.
definitely.
And sometimes you can feel a little bit lonely. Like a Māori speaking home, to be honest, is quite a lonely journey.
I
Like
bet.
there's like 5, 6 of us in Gisborne.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so it's pretty like you can't really just go where we'll come and hang
No.
out, and
Yeah.
like kids don't want to come out and hang out at our place.
Because they're like, I don't know what you're
They're like,
saying.
"Ah." So that's kind of hard for my kids because they're like, Papa, I
Mm,
don't know te moki te koro Māori. Like, my mates don't know how to speak Māori. Like, they'll feel like they're going on holiday to another country, maybe, or a
and you're like,
cultural
full
experience.
immersion, babe. It's how they're gonna
Yeah,
learn.
so it's being open to other perspectives while maintaining your own principles, your own
Yeah.
yeah, and not there are some things you can trade off, some things you can't really trade off, and so we kind of just figured that out as a family,
Mm.
as
Have
coming
there
back
ever
to that big
been
picture.
have there ever been times for you where it's like felt a bit too hard basket, where you're like, man, we've picked a hard journey for
Yeah,
us to like try and revitalize this language and this
um,
tikanga?
never. That's because it's w- once you have a command of the language. that you're not, because what happens for second language learners, and I'll be honest, I'm really privileged. I was never a second language learner. I could only speak Māori up until the age of about 4. So
Wow.
so that's why my English is a little bit slow, because like when you speak, I hear it in Māori. There'll be a
I was
part of
going to
me.
say, do you think in Māori?
It's sometimes I do, and
Yeah.
so sometimes I say it in Māori, and then I try and translate that into English, and then I go through a quality assurance process in your own head to say, is that proper?
Yeah. And you're trying to do that all fast enough to respond.
And so it'd be the same for second language learners, so that are learning Māori, or even being in a Māori language space. That you're having to translate, say it in yourself in English, then say it in English, then translate it, and then quality assurance, and then go, oh, does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I mean about having a perspective where you're just where you're generous in the way that you approach everything, even just with people, their time and their ability to engage and recognize and understand. That's one thing I've probably taken as being just really generous about how we approach things.
That's amazing. Do you dream in Māori?
No, not all the time. I dream a lot about surfing.
I love that.
But like it's my core memories. They're all my
Yeah.
core first memories are in the language. And because my dad was very protective, because he hadn't had the same experience. So he came from not knowing a lick of Māori until the age of about 23, 24, and then learnt one word a day every day for about 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And so he fully immersed himself, and then he sort of came out of that a speaker within about a year and a half. And so then I was born when he was 30. So I kind of had the privilege of all of that hard work, all of that having to translate it in your head and going backwards and forth, like I said. He did all of that for me. And then he did all the historical kind of research so we have a deeper understanding of who we are, where we come from. And then he used me and my younger sister as a kind of like portals, like places to bank all of that into.
Yeah.
And then from a privileged position, we have our own tamariki now, and so we probably don't have that same black and white kind of nature about our decisions, and that's just evolution. It's just how things evolve, and I say get better, stronger, and feel warmer, because sometimes when he was black and white, it felt cold. Like you think Māori language, oh, that's a warm fuzzy thing. It wasn't always warm and fuzzy, you know. So
he was like, we're saving a language here.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool. It is funny. I studied Te Reo Māori at school until year 12, and my Te Reo Māori teacher was the same, that his father didn't have any language, couldn't pass it along to him, and so he learned it at university. And he was amazing. He's such an amazing man, but he was the same, that when it got to the level where we had to get to full immersion, when our classes started being in full immersion, we would walk in and he'd be like, and he was like, no Māori, and I was just like, oh my gosh. We'd say anything in English, he'd be like, go, and we were like, oh my gosh.
That's my dad.
Yeah, it's good. You need it to be able to know what you're saying, but it's hard. You're like, I don't know how to say this. I don't know the kupu. I don't know what I'm saying.
That's my old man. But he's softened.
I love
he has softened considerably over time.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I always think it's really funny, like seeing how your parents parented you versus how they grandparent your children. You're like, oh, it's soft.
All these angels walking around.
You're like, hang on, these rules did not apply to me. Why? What's happened here? I love it. All right, on to the fourth question, which is, what has your biggest what the was that moment been since you became a parent?
I've had a number. Like I really struggle with my my children getting older.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, please don't get older. Just stay
little. Stay
little. Like my big girl, because like we're extremely proud of her. She's such an amazing kid. Like, But yeah, I just wish she could stay like 11. I don't want her to get older.
Stop being a teenager.
So I don't know if that's what the if
Yeah.
moment, but it's something that you're kind of faced with, and I kind of have more days reflecting about the past with her than I do the future, because I'm quite clear with her. The day you turn 18, you are gone, because I need that room. I need that room. And
This is precious real estate.
you're moving in with your auntie. She's already got a room at her auntie's house. You're moving in with your auntie. You are gone.
Perfect.
I'm
Yeah.
preparing you now. So I've been saying this for about 5 years. So 5 years ago, it felt like a long way away. Now it's like only 2.5 years away. So,
I know.
so those types of things, yeah, you just start, you reflect on it differently. And because she'll almost be like an auntie to her
Yeah,
little
I was
sister.
just about to say it's a big age spread for you to have,
Yeah.
you know, a baby that's almost 16 and then a baby that's newborn is quite.
Yeah, so being it'll be probably amazing for her. Yeah, because you pick up so many skills and experiences, and you a perspective of, like, you kind of ego check having a baby. You're like, oh, you had oh shucks, yeah. Without myself here, this baby would not be able to survive. So I need to be
Yeah.
on my game.
Yeah.
So those types of experiences will be quite important for her, and it really brings home a lot of the teaching that we've had over time. Like, you see it in them, like when they're really good with little kids, you're like, wow, why aren't you like that all the time? But you're like, oh no, it's in there, it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's all that matters. Often when you see your kids outside of your own presence, but you can feel that your influences come through. It's the presence that you have with them. That's like, oh, when Papa's here, I can do whatever I want, and he'll correct me, and I'll just push the boundaries. So they're just testing boundaries. But when he's not here, okay, I know what those boundaries are. Yeah. Or we call he ko tangata, like a quality person, to be a good person. Yeah, that's all we want, for you to be good people. Yeah.
I have a question, if you're happy to talk about it, about Hinepūororangi, about like what the belief is for you guys, or like sort of that experience of a baby born still, what was like the ritual around that, or what did the grieving process look like? Like, how was that what did that look like for you guys? If you're okay to talk about it, because I know it's pretty.
Yeah, I'm quite open about it, because lots of families are kind of going to a blind. You're preparing for, like, what we've just spoken about, this life. And she's one, it's taken away, but it's also like she's frozen in purity, like, when a baby's first born, she's frozen like that. So all your dreams and aspirations, they just hang there forever.
Yeah.
That's one reason why we named her younger sister the same name, so they could just carry on
with her.
With her, so she would still be with us.
And still have that legacy.
Yeah, have all of that. The other thing around losing baby, because she was quite mature, 33 weeks. We were preparing for her life. Was what do we do with, like, her funeral, her tangihanga? Because some families don't feel like they should hold a tangihanga, a funeral for baby, but we didn't have any alternative framework other than hold a normal tangihanga. But because she was our baby, we still hugged her, we still carried her around. All those things that some people might say are restricted. We still did all those things. We spent as much time as we could with her. Yeah,
that's pretty beautiful. I know, so for context, I work in the team that supports whānau through stillbirth and infant loss and pregnancy loss in my day job, and there's so much beauty in holding and having that time with bub, and like having your family meet them, and it's like creating that story, even though you've lost that life, is still being able to create memories with this baby, and that other people have memories with her, and like there's actually like research around why you should hold baby and why you should take photos with baby and all of these things. And so it's amazing that that was sort of your like natural reaction to do that.
Yeah, we
But
did all of
also,
those things. We did all of those
yeah.
things. I had a cousin that lost her baby about 2 years earlier,
Mm,
and when she learnt, she sent me this message, and I'll never forget it. But it basically said, whatever like our protocols say, don't follow those. Whatever
mm,
you feel, do them. And so that's what we did.
nice.
And so like I was thinking about, sometimes our protocols are quite black and white. They're quite prescriptive.
Mm,
But they're designed for a whole nother setting. This
yeah.
setting's quite different. The other
It
beautiful,
does, it is a very separate
Mm,
context
yeah,
stillbirth. It is
totally.
very different to someone who has been alive and then dies. It's very different.
The other beautiful thing that happened was when we took baby onto her marae on
Mm,
my wife's side in Porirua there, Takapuwahia. Mothers came that had lost their babies that we
mm,
know some distant, some quite close, but we didn't know that they'd lost babies, but you could read it on them.
mm,
And they would all, like, there was about 5 or 6 of them that come right up next to my wife Kawai, and grieved with her, like they were grieving their own baby as they
mm,
grieved with Kawai.
mm.
And there was like members of our family, so this is only a generation before, that had lost children that I'd never heard about. Some
Wow.
full term, some like I have an older sibling, never spoken about, never heard about
Mm,
that sibling.
mm,
But then my mum started talking about this baby that she lost. And
mm,
so that's why I'm quite open about sharing about a Hinepūororangi, is
mm,
if I'd known that, that would have changed the way I would have approached this loss.
mm.
And so we would have discussions around what happens if.
Yeah.
And so taking away the taboo nature of losing tamariki in stillborn is quite important for us as a family. And so whenever people lose
Mm,
their tamariki, stillborn, we'll go to the tangi or we'll try and support the mothers, because it was really helpful for us. And it's
mm,
something that Te Ao Māori hasn't quite come to grips with. But in our
mm.
stories, we have, what are they? Oh, well, like, yes, there's stories, Pūrākau, like our ancestor Maui, the great Maui, he was stillborn and he was brought back to life.
Wow.
And so there's this whole set of stories that we're taught about Maui, his birth, how he was brought back to life, who raised him, and then when he was returned to his family. Um, and so they sit inside our stories, and those are kind of like like if they were the Bible, they wouldn't be the Genesis, but they might be the next sort of chapters. Like they're quite
Yeah.
important chapters in our
Mm,
um,
yeah.
theology. So there's lots of markers for existing inside that space, and but there aren't many people that actually probably speak about it enough. So you do kind of feel alone. I was really lucky. I had my wife's family. We were down there when it happened in Wellington, and so
Mm,
they were extremely supportive, and they had all the roles in place to be able to hold us through that process.
yeah.
That lasted probably about a month.
Yeah.
Um, of staying quite restricted away from everyone and just leaning into each other as a family to
Mm.
look after mainly my wife, but also their wider family and her older siblings, because it affects everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It affects the whole family and sort of like everyone's going through that grief of not having what they thought was going to happen from the
That's
result
it.
of this pregnancy, you know? So it's quite a beautiful thing when a whole family can come around and recognize that rather than just leaving it to the couple to deal with in, quite a private way or in a way that's like, I think almost thought of in like a shameful way when it's
Yes,
sort of encouraged to stay private.
that's the stories we hear. We hear family, like mums not telling anyone, holding
Mm,
baby at home, and then finding like just in her room, and then finding a
mm.
way to, I shouldn't say dispose, but like do something with baby.
Yeah,
So that's a
yeah.
very real thing.
Mm,
So the more we talk about it, the more we get some understanding and we appreciate the value of family and the value of that network.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about resilience in times of suffering and times when times are hard. These are those times. Yeah, when you withdraw from the currency that you've built over years and years of love.
Yeah.
So that's what we felt, deep love and support during that time.
And I guess quite like a beautiful way, like we were saying initially, that like you're showing up for your whānau, you know, you're there every day of the week doing things and serving, and
Yeah,
those are those times where it comes back around. It's that like reciprocity of
yeah,
someone
yeah.
coming back
Hundreds
and
of
showing
people
up for
came.
you.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
yeah, we were well looked after.
Well supported. Oh, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, because that is those are the stories that we need to hear. And I applaud you for being open about it, because I know that it's not easy. It's like a pretty open wound that is pretty like feels like sometimes it feels like it won't ever close. But
Yeah,
I think through stories like yours, that's where people start to feel less alone in that experience. And I think like it's not a thing that we should be ashamed of. It's not a shameful thing. And I think the only way that we can sort of flip the script on that is through people like yourself and your wife talking about your daughter and her life. And that gives her life even more value, as well as by sort of changing that, cultural narrative, I guess. So thank you for sharing that. The last question, we've made it to the end, is if you were listening to this podcast on the day you became a parent, what would you want yourself to hear?
yeah. If I was listening to this the day I became a parent,
Your little 22-year-old self?
yeah. I would say, bro, you need to get a haircut, cuz. That yellow patch on the back of your head. Um, I would say good luck and take it
See you on the other
easy
side.
and time to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that happened to me that I would want to reinforce is that I had friends, both my behaviors and also friends that weren't very supportive of this new commitment. And I decided pretty early on that the gate was where they stood. And so I would reinforce that, take a deep look at yourself and because that network of friends that we grew up with aren't always consistent with this next step. And so they'll get there at some stage, but to keep everything cozy and protected in the home, we've got to keep those at the gate. And so that's kind of my philosophy, that
It's really good advice.
to keep home safe, and that includes your own behaviours. So I'm a great believer in a safe man equals a safe family. Yeah. So safe men, and being quite honest about some of our own frailties, and being brave enough to do something about those is really important. Like, I'm not ashamed to say that, Gisborne has probably the worst domestic violence statistics in the country. That's the city I was raised in. And it comes back to leaning into a network of solid people, having a support structure in there to help us through those tough times, but also some personal growth, and that requires maybe some new friends and some new activities. So find those and that are consistent with the treasure that you've been gifted.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That is amazing advice. Thank you so much. This was such an awesome conversation and just so valuable, and so awesome to see someone so sure in their values and committed to progression, and especially to a whānau that has obviously grown up in a colonised country, to be so determined in your like re-indigenisation of even just starting with like your whānau is so huge. And obviously that's gone further and further with all the things that your whānau does and your governance that you're doing. Like you're really doing quite amazing things. So thank you for sharing your story with us, and all the best for little Pēpi on her way so soon. And we just can't wait to keep up with what you're doing.
I just wanted to say thank you for being brave enough to approach me. Because
You're not scary.
People will go, oh, no. Like just the culture thing. Sometimes you're like, oh no, it's. But I think these types of conversation is the New Zealand that I want to live in. Just
Same.
being and being free and frank and respectful around our own ideas. I think that I like it. This is as a picture, as a picture that will be, I think, normal in maybe 10 to 15 years.
I hope so.
You're doing such a brave thing.
Thank you.
Being ahead of the game. And like I started my own businesses, and when I first started, I was thinking, I don't know what I'm doing.
That's where I'm at right now. I've got no clue.
What is this? And will this kick off, or will this actually be meaningful? But even just doing it, it's the doing it that's so important, because for every one that doesn't crack it, you'll pick up something and you'll continue to build and create, and it's so rewarding because you did it. No one said, oh, here's some money. No. Actually, like, oh, I'm just going to create this. Yeah, which is quite cool.
And for me, like, I always say to people, even if this turns into nothing, the conversations that I've had are so fascinating and valuable, and I'm getting something out of them. So even if no one else is listening to this conversation, like, this was a great conversation that I'm so glad I had, which I wouldn't have done if I didn't start the podcast. Cool. All right. So this is the end of the first part of the episode. Now what happens is that I ask you a secret sixth question, which only subscribers to my newsletter get to hear. So everyone else, bye-bye. Thank you for joining us today.
Why do you parent like that?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Why Do You Parent Like That? Why Do You Parent Like That is created by me, your gal, Abby Harrison. Huge love and snuggles to my gorgy nephew and niece, Thomas and Francis, for lending their voices to my jingle, as well as a massive thank you to the iHeartRadio Podcast Network team for giving this little pod a place to call home. Be sure to follow our socials to stay up to date with podcast happenings, as well as chaotic insights to my life. If you have a story that you reckon would be neat to share on the pod, flick me an email at whydoyouparentlike.that podcast@gmail.com. Love you!